friends, and welcome to Sustainable Prepping, your home for fear-free emergency preparedness and a sustainable life. My name is Brecky, and today we're going to be talking about where to get started if you are an absolute beginner noob at prepping. If you're new here, I want to say a great big welcome. I'm glad you found my slice of the internet, and if you're not new, I want to say welcome back. I have been a while in posting, in part because I have been working a lot at my new job, and we've had a whole round of sniffles that has had our family kind of out of commission for almost 2 weeks. Different members got it and then got better, and then other members got it, so I have been managing all of that. I finally have some free time, and so I wanted to put out a video that I've been wanting to do for a while, but I think is especially important as newer folks have found me and followed me. Hello and welcome. But as more and more people are getting interested in preparedness, particularly with some of the rhetoric that is floating in the air right now, there's a lot we can talk about. So let's get started. Now, there are tons of videos and blog posts and whole books on how to help you get started with being prepared for emergencies, but I want to step it back and invite you to think about your emergency preparedness from a slightly different perspective. And that is, what is the actual emergency you're preparing for? When we think about emergencies and disasters, a lot of us have really specific ideas in mind. They're usually some kind of natural disaster that has long-term effects. Think about Hurricane Katrina. Currently in California, there are people who are snowed in and could be snowed in as long as 10 days as of when I'm filming. So really strange and changing weather patterns, excessive storms, fire, anything like that could cause damage. These sorts of natural disasters are what a lot of us are thinking about when we think about emergency preparedness and emergency kits and everything like that, okay? Hurricanes, tornadoes, all of that. You might also be concerned about things like war, things like civil unrest, things like domestic terrorism or human-caused disaster, okay? Even human error-caused disasters like in East Palestine, Ohio, that now is an uninhabitable location because of the chemicals that were spilled and are contaminating the air and the water, right? These are all disasters that you can be prepared for. If you go online and you look up preparedness kits, there are all kinds of things you can buy pre-made. I don't suggest doing that personally, but you can also find all kinds of checklists and really cute Pinterest things to put together a 72-hour kit. And I want to caution you against that. A lot of the things you're going to find, particularly around a 72-hour kit, aren't going to help you. They aren't going to help you. They're cute. They're a fun little family activity, but they're not actually going to help you in a real disaster. So let's back it up and think about what disaster you're really actually going to plan for. And then everything that you do will be personalized to this disaster plan for you. I want you to consider that the disaster you're planning for is going to have a lack of electricity. Whatever it is, whether it's a natural disaster because of changing weather patterns, whether it's a human-made disaster intentionally or unintentionally, whether it's war, whatever, right? That the disaster you are most likely to face and the disaster that is most likely to cause harm to your family is going to be a disaster based on not having access to electricity. So the power is out, the lights are out. What I want you to do is everything I'm going to say, I want you to plan for a minimum of 7 days with no electricity. And then once you have that 7 days, we can begin to branch out. You can double your preps. So you have 2 weeks, you can quadruple them. So you have a whole month. You can begin to add side preps, and we'll talk about that towards the end of the video. But the point is, forget about all of the fancy shenanigans. Forget about all of the scenarios that people are going to walk you through. Don't worry about that. You're never going to know all the details of what's coming, okay? But what you can rest assured in knowing is that a real disaster is going to knock out your power. However it happens, it's going to happen. That's where the disaster is going to lie. So if you can get your preps in place for a lack of power, why it's knocked out becomes the secondary issue, and you can begin to prep for that. But we want to prep for no power, okay? So that's step one, prepping for no power. What do we do first? You can only live 3 days without clean water. Only 3 days without clean water. And the CDC, FEMA, and most emergency organizations are going to recommend that you store 1 gallon per person per day of clean water. And I'm going to recommend that too, with this one caveat. You want to add a gallon of water for cooking per day. So for example, I have 6 people in my family that live with us full time. We plan for 7 gallons a day of water. 6 gallons, 1 gallon for each person, plus 1 is 7. That's 49 gallons for 1 week. We just round it up and do 50. It's a nice even number. So we store 50 gallons for a week of water storage. That's a lot. That's a lot. And you might not be able to do all your water storage on one day, but go get 72 hours of water. And then when you have the budget, go get another 72 hours of water. There's lots of ways to store water. I will link some videos. I'm not going to go into all of that here, but start today. Even if it's just going and buying a couple flats of water bottles. I don't love those from an environmental perspective. They don't last forever, but it's something. Get your water storage now. Contaminated water is going to be more damaging to you than going without. But you can only go without for 3 days before you basically perish. So you really got to figure out your water, okay? Water is essential. You can go up to 3 weeks without food. You might not be happy, but you can theoretically survive up to 3 weeks without food. You can only survive 3 days without water. So get your water storage, 1 gallon per person per day for every member of your household. And don't forget your pets. Your pets won't need a whole gallon necessarily. You know best, but you want to add them into your plans, plus a gallon for cooking. Now, if you're a single person, you may not need that extra gallon for cooking. You could probably get away with a half a gallon a day for cooking. Use your best judgment. Your brain is an important part of your preparedness. But plan for 1 gallon per person per day of drinking water, plus 1 gallon for cooking and sanitation. So second piece is that we are going to be planning all of this for 7 days and not 72 hours. That way, once you have 7 days, you can then double, triple, or quadruple to get up to a month of storage. Now, for food, as we think about 7 days of food, you need to have 21 meals per person. They don't have to be fancy. In fact, I really recommend against a lot of things that require heavy cooking. You can really lean into things like granola bars and protein bars here, particularly if you're someone who needs to have minimal space and minimal cooking. If you're someone who lives in an apartment, if you're someone who isn't good with off-grid cooking, this can be a great way for you to get your calories in a really simple way. So lean into things like oatmeal, those macaroni and cheese cups that already have the cup, so you don't have to worry about trying to do dishes on top of it. You can lean into things like soup. You can lean into things like canned foods. You need to know what you like best. If you want me to hold your hand and walk you through it, I do have a course, which I will have linked down below. It's my food storage in a weekend course. Gets you a whole month of food storage in 1 weekend. However, if that feels like a bridge too far for you, just plan on getting 3 meals a day with maybe a snack or a comfort food item for every member of your family. You know what your family eats. If you don't like tuna fish, don't store tuna fish. If you don't eat oatmeal, don't store oatmeal. You're not going to want to eat your emergency food, and it's not going to be good for your morale to store things you don't actually eat. So consider 3 meals. They don't have to be breakfast, lunch, and dinner meals. They can just be 3 food items that are going to get you good calories, good proteins. Don't worry about it all being perfect. Don't worry about sorting out how many carbs versus fats versus proteins. For 1 week, it doesn't matter, okay? You actually have a couple of months before that's really going to be affecting you. Just get calories across 3 meals, maybe an extra snack in there, and have that all stored together. Don't have it in your pantry. Have it all stored together, preferably in the same place you're storing at least some of your water. 7 days, 3 meals a day plus a snack or a comfort food item. That's what you need, okay? That's your minimum. Your third thing is going to be looking at your first aid. And first aid needs to include not just Band-Aids and ways to irrigate and clean a wound, but also backup medication. I've said this before, I'll say it again. You need to have a way to get at least 1 week of medication, if your essential medications, and have them on lock. This means having a good conversation with your doctor. This may mean getting a special dispensation from your insurance. Mark Cuban has an online pharmacy that's competing with other pharmacies by keeping the costs lower. He's capping it at only a 10 to 15% like sale profit rate as a pharmacy. So that could be a way if you can get the prescription to purchase it online. But get your essential medications. If you have heart medication, if you have mental health medication, if you have any kind of essential meds, try to keep a week ahead, okay? Try to keep a 1 week buffer. This way, you aren't desperate for your medication in the event of a grid down, a power out catastrophe. All right. It could happen because of storms. It could happen because of supply chains. You don't know why it could happen, but it certainly could happen. So try to get ahead. I understand that there are some medications that are controlled and are hard to store. I think about diabetes this way. This is going to be a conversation to have with your doctor and to talk to them about how you are trying to be prepared. That this is an important step for your mental and emotional health to have these things in place. Can they help you? What are their recommendations? Only you are going to know how to deal with that. And if you have a medication that has to be refrigerated, your next step, as soon as these basics are covered, is to figure out how to keep that medication refrigerated in the event of a major grid down situation. I don't have a ton of ideas for you. That's not my area of expertise, but I can happily brainstorm ideas in a different video. Let me know down below if you would like to see that. Okay, so we've started with water. You need to have 7 days of water, 1 gallon per person per day, plus a gallon for cooking and cleaning. Then you need to have food, 21 meals per person for a whole week, okay? 3 meals a day, 21 meals, add a few comfort items in, a little bit of candy or a little bit of snacky stuff that makes you feel good. That's your next goal, okay? Then you're gonna have first aid, basic first aid kit, Band-Aid, cleansing stuff like alcohol or peroxide, that kind of a thing, Neosporin, gauze, wrap, ace bandage, burn cream, plus your special medication, okay? Your dedicated, most essential medication. If they're non-essentials, don't worry about them. But your essentials, you gotta have a week of, okay? Once you have those 3, these are your basics, then we move into what I consider the second layer. This is gonna be shelter. I would suggest having tarps and some kind of zip ties or ropes in the event you have damage to the roof, in the event that you have to flee your home and create a shelter. Have shelter available. A couple of tarps and zip ties and rope is going to take you a long way. So you're going to want to have some kind of shelter option. You're also going to want to have some kind of lighting option, flashlights, camp lanterns, anything like that. Glow sticks even can be useful depending upon what your budget is, but you're going to want to have lighting, and then you're going to want to have a way to cook the food you're storing. Now, depending upon your budget, depending upon your space, you may choose to forego having a stove and just have pre-prepared open and eat meals where you don't actually have to heat water. I wouldn't make that choice, but you might have to because of your living situation. If you're in an apartment where there is just no way to safely have open flame to heat things up, then you may have to do that. But you want your next level, okay, after you have water, food, and first aid to be, you need to have lighting, you need to have heating, okay, and then you need to have shelter. Those are the next 3. I would suggest also getting a really good knife or a really good multi-tool that has a knife, maybe scissors, pliers, so that you have it all in one kit. I keep all of these things together in like a big toteable box so that if you have to evacuate, your 1 week survival kit becomes something you can take with you. But this is where you're going to start. And here's why I think it's important to start here. If your power goes out because it's cold and you know that cold snaps are possible, okay? Let's say you live in the mountains. Let's say you live in some place, like I live in North Carolina now. Usually we have mild winters, but global climate change means we might start getting more snow where I live. There's snow on the western side of the state. I live in the middle. So I can plan to have wool blankets, space blankets, a generator. I can start planning those pieces. I live in North Carolina. It gets really hot here in the summertime. We could lose power because of heat wave. We could have rolling blackouts because it's too hot to keep the electricity going. I can start planning on having rechargeable battery packs for fans, rechargeable battery packs for my phone so that I have access to the internet, which might still be working even if I don't have full electricity, right? I can get to my cell data, but I can't have electricity in my house. So these are things that can become layered once you have your base. And your base is water, food, first aid, shelter, lighting, and heating, okay? That's gonna be your base. This is where you're gonna start, friends. You don't have to have a big master plan. You don't have to start with nuclear preparedness. You don't have to start with a ton of gear. Get a plastic tote or 2, fill it with your food, your first aid, your shelter, right? Your tarp and zip ties, a couple of flashlights and backup batteries, maybe some rechargeable battery packs, a tarp, did I already say that? A knife, something sharp or multi-tool. Don't have these things spread out in 5 different places. Have it all in one spot, have it labeled, and then boom, you're going to be ahead of most people, even some preppers who have their stuff in 8 different locations or in a storage shed somewhere. You're ready, because the most likely scenario is that you're going to lose power. And if you can be prepared for 7 days without power or 2 weeks without power, right? You're going to be so far ahead of the game. You are going to be in such a better place that once you figure out, okay, I've got my 1 to 2 weeks of stuff. Now, why is the power knocked out? And that why is what you answer when you start buying gear. When you start buying gear to keep you cool in summer, gear to keep you warm in winter, gear to help you deal with hurricanes or tornadoes, gear to help you deal with this idea of a long-term grid down situation. We're talking about more than a week. Maybe you're investing in solar or wind energy or whatever, right? That comes after this basic. So if you are brand new to preparedness, I want you to get started, and I want you to take off the fear. I want you to take off the worry. I want you to take off the stuff that you think you need to buy, and I want you to focus on your essentials, okay? 1 gallon per person per day of water plus a gallon for cooking and cleaning for your family. That means if you're a single person, that's 7 gallons at least, maybe 8 for a week, okay, of water. I'd go with 10 gallons personally if it was me. Then you're gonna have a week of food, 3 meals plus a couple snacks per day, 21 meals essentially, plus a few extras. So you could plan like 25 meals basically if you were a single person. Then you're gonna have first aid, basic first aid kit, plus a week's worth of your most essential meds. Then you're going to add in flashlights with backup batteries of any kind that you prefer, okay? You pick what you like. Shelter, tarps, a tent. If you're a camper and you already have a tent, put your tent with your stuff. And then you're gonna want to have some kind of heating option, cooking option, okay? That would be the next piece. Of course, adding in a sharp knife or multi-tool as a useful piece of this puzzle. Once you have all that done, you guys are going to be so much more calm and confident. You're going to be so much more prepared for anything, and you don't have to do it from a place of fear. You don't have to spend a lot of money, and you don't have to buy some big, extensive course that is going to go into details on things that you don't need to worry about. If you're brand new, this is where you get started. Friends, comment down below and let me know what you're doing to get started. If you're brand new to preparedness, what is the biggest question that you have? Maybe I can help you figure that out together. If you've been at it a while, what would you add to this most essential basics list? I could have listed 12, 13, 14 things that I would like to make as basic essentials. But for someone who is brand new, and I know there's a lot of you who are brand new, I wanted to make it easy, I wanted to make it achievable, and I wanted to make it relevant regardless of the disaster you're going to be facing. Remember, the biggest disaster we're most likely to face is going to be a grid down situation, regardless of why we have a grid down situation. This is all about sheltering in place. If you can't shelter in place and you have to evacuate, it's a little bit of a different story. Hopefully, if you have all this in a kit, you can stick it in your car. All right, friends, I hope you're all doing well, and until the next video, happy